Are you a manual therapist ready to expand your clinical reach and deepen your effectiveness? Upledger Craniosacral Therapy addresses deep restrictions, supports neurological and fascial systems, and enhances whole body function by working with the body's natural healing processes. For over 40 years, Upledger Institute International has led the field of craniosacral therapy, offering an approach that integrates seamlessly into any manual therapy practice and supports common to complex and chronic conditions. Find a class near you at upledger.com/courses or call 800-233-5880 extension 2 and begin your craniosacral therapy training for as little as $100 a month. As a massage therapist, flexibility means more than choosing your days off. It means opportunities to work when it makes sense for your life. Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa helps therapists build books that complement their lives, with variable schedules, a built-in member base, and a national footprint. Hand and Stone offers you a model designed to meet therapists where they are and help them get where they want to go. Learn more at handandstonecareers.com.
What is the sun without the moon? What is a mountain without a valley? And what is the pec major without a pec minor? These are questions that have plagued humans since the dawn of time, especially that last one. I think it was Aristotle who wrote, "Knowing yourself, specifically your pectoralis muscles, is the beginning of all wisdom." And although this is not at all what Aristotle said, it is, in this episode, what I am proclaiming as truth. Because it is here, in these simultaneously complementary and contradictory muscles, that the vulnerable beauty of being a weirdo actually resides. Before I get too anatomical, I want to draw your attention to music. Music theory, really. Not that I know a lot about it, but I know enough to know that there are major chords and there are minor chords. Major chords sound happy and bright. Minor chords sound melancholic and perhaps a bit bruised. You can feel it in your body when a song shifts from a major to a minor chord. Something inside changes, and it can transform your whole mood. One of my favorite examples of this is the song Creep by Radiohead. For me, it's one of those songs that I need to actually stop what I am doing and just lean in when it comes on. I know where the song is going when it starts, but I want to feel it every single time. If you need to pause this episode and go give the song a listen, I fully support that. In the song, there's a chord shift right where the lyrics start sounding angry, and the jarring guitar hit drives home the truth of it all. It's a rally cry for anyone who has ever felt alienated or weird in a seemingly perfect world. This is how I see the pec minor. It is the weirdo of muscle anatomy, and I love it so much. Okay, so first off, the pec major and the pec minor are both pectoralis muscles, pectoral referring to the breast or chest. But when anyone says pecs, like it was pec day at the gym or bro, your pecs look jacked, they're always talking about the pec major, like it is the end-all be-all of muscles and the only one that is deserving of any attention. Meanwhile, the pec minor sits quietly underneath with its strong ropey pull on the front of the scapula and the upper ribs, stabilizing things, helping its human breathe deeper, never flaunting its strength or boasting its size, and it's delightfully, beautifully, and weirdly incredible. The pec minor is a small, flat, triangular muscle that originates on ribs 3, 4, and 5 in the front, sometimes ribs 2 through 5, depending on your source, and inserts into the coracoid process of the scapula, that bony protrusion that you can feel just under the middle of your clavicle. It is a compact little rope running from your anterior ribs up to this bony hook. Functionally, the pec minor does 3 things. It depresses the scapula, it protracts the scapula, pulling it forward and around the rib cage, and it downwardly rotates the scapula. I'll get into this one in a bit because it might be a little confusing, understandably. And then also, because it attaches to the ribs, it does a 4th thing. It's also considered an accessory muscle of respiration, giving ribs 3 through 5 an extra lift when there might be some respiratory distress, like someone just did a full-out sprint or someone is in the middle of an asthma flare. Dysfunctionally, the pec minor also does some things, as skeletal muscles tend to do. But understanding its function first helps to understand its dysfunction. Individually, the actions of the pec minor are nuanced and slight. As a whole, they evoke all the big emotions, like that minor chord at the right moment of a song. The pec minor serves as an accent to shoulder girdle movements. They are subtle, don't necessarily get a gym day workout, but without them, the shoulder would be, in my opinion, a one-note joint. Not nearly as exciting. Okay, so the big action is depression. I love this because minor chords in songs are often depressive. But no, not that kind of depression. When the pec minor contracts, it pulls down on the coracoid process, bringing the scapula into depression. So if you're in an upright position right now, push your hands into the chair you're sitting on or reach down to the floor without bending your waist. And this is essentially pulling your shoulders down away from your ears, which gravity already does on its own, unless you are like the millions of us who find our shoulders chronically up in our ears. In this case, the pec minor is losing this battle. And then we have protraction. I was taught in massage school that this is what happens to the scapula if we were to throw a punch. But I much prefer to think of it as what happens to the scapula if we were to give someone we love a big old bear hug. The pec minor pulls forward on the coracoid process, which then slides the scapula away from the spine out to the more lateral rib cage so that the reach across the body increases. The serratus anterior also chimes in with this action, so I highly recommend bear hugging exercises to strengthen both of these muscles and your relationships. And then we have downward rotation. This is very specifically the movement of the scapula in a downward rotation along the rib cage as the arm is moving into adduction. Or more simply put, it's when the inferior angle of the scapula goes from pointing out laterally when our arm is raised above our head to pointing down neutrally when the arm comes back down. The pec minor helps that happen. Remember, though, that there is a difference between scapular movement, and shoulder girdle movement. The scapula itself moves in directions like elevation and depression and protraction, and the shoulder girdle is a package of 4 joints: the glenohumeral, acromioclavicular, sternoclavicular, and scapulothoracic joints. They commonly act together to create the bigger shoulder movements, like throwing or bear hugging. The shoulder, though, is a general term most commonly used to indicate anything about the girdle, like I hurt my shoulder, as opposed to I strained my scapulothoracic joint. And as a side note, scapulohumeral rhythm is a term that gets thrown around sometimes. It is the coordinated glenohumeral motion with scapular upward rotation during arm abduction or flexion, or both, and then again with downward rotation of the scapula and adduction or extension of the glenohumeral joint. Analyzing scapulohumeral rhythm, what part moves what point of which action, is crucial in understanding a lot of shoulder dysfunction. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. There are so many muscles that move the scapula and the shoulder as a whole, and the pec minor is minor and really only latches onto the coracoid process. So why are you talking about girdles and rhythms? Isn't a tight pec minor just a tight pec minor? I'm so glad you asked. No, it is not. And this is why I love it. When the pec minor falls into dysfunction, it's typically stemming from chronically shortened positioning, which is 9 times out of 10 a postural issue. All the things we do as humans that contribute to our shoulders rounding forward and down, and there are a lot of them, are all too common. And the pec minor is picking up what we are putting down. It's like, oh, you need me to shorten up? Got it. And so it does. Clearly, P.S. and by the way, when I talk about a muscle thinking and making decisions, I'm kidding. They don't do that. But they might as well be. In this example, when we round our shoulders and slouch over a phone or a child or a knitting project or whatever, and then we don't counteract that position with some good hearty stretching, we are training those muscle fibers to be short. And then after weeks or months or years, we wake up and realize that our shoulders no longer sit back. In anatomical speak, the scapula has fallen into an anterior tilt. which in a bubble, an anterior tilt is not a bad thing. It just happens to be the name of the misaligned position of the scapula when it chronically tips forward and the inferior angle lifts off the rib cage. This minor shift of the pec minor creates a minor positional change that sets the tone for an entirely different experience, just like the minor chord in a song. Only instead of maybe enjoying the feeling of a darker vulnerability, it becomes limiting, inflamed, and painful. A scapula that sits in an anterior tilt changes the way the arm and the shoulder move, which alters which muscles do what actions, which restricts the blood vessels and the nerve vessels that live there, which, as you can see, is the downward spiral of shoulder dysfunction. So, what do we do about it? Another great question. First, start with a simple assessment at resting scapular position. Check for that telltale coracoid forward posture, and if there's any numbness or tingling reported down the arm, treat that as useful data, not a green light to do aggressive work. Second, when it comes to the actual hands-on work, this is a muscle that responds beautifully to sustained moderate pressure rather than brute force. You're working through the pec major to access it, client supine, arm supported, and you're generally working just medial to the coracoid process, following the rib attachments down towards 3, 4, and 5. Pin and stretch techniques, some of my favorite, work really well here. Use a gentle pressure into the belly of the muscle and guide the client's arm and shoulder into scapular retraction or a gentle horizontal adduction of the arm. Having the client lie close to the edge of the table so that their arm can fall towards the floor facilitates a great pec minor stretch. Third, positional release is a great tool for those clients with hyperlimitations. Positioning their arm across their body and supporting their shoulder up and off the table, a subtle compression into the pec minor from this position mimics their familiar pattern, but highlights what might have been sitting in the dark. Have them breathe into your pressure and invite them to internally offer their own fibers a chance to unravel. And fourth, encouraging long-term outcomes is all about creating new habits. This muscle needs a counter narrative, not just a release. Get your client to invest in a yoga ball. Coach them through laying supine on the ball, stabling themselves with their legs, and allowing their arms to drop back into a full open chest stretch. Have them play around with internal and external rotation of the shoulder, allowing the scapula to fall even farther back into retraction with each movement. These stretches can also be done against a door frame or a wall, but the yoga ball lets gravity take over, which is, in my opinion, chef's kiss. A pec minor that is short and tight is structurally a muscle pulling on a bone out of the position it's meant to occupy. The scapula has a home, neutral, stable, and gliding freely across the rib cage. So when the pec minor's been left unchecked for long stretches of a time, it overstabilizes, tipped forward, rotated down, and compensating in a posture that is less about stability and more about limitations. But the work that we do, and there are so many more options above and beyond the ones I suggested in this podcast, is effective. That position isn't permanent. A shortened pec minor is changeable tissue, and a tipped scapula is a correctable pattern. The pec minor doesn't need to become the pec major. It was never supposed to be the verbose anthem. It's supposed to be exactly what it is: the quiet, structural, unglamorous, weird muscle doing essential work in the background, the one that gives the whole shoulder more depth once you finally pay attention to it. It doesn't need the gym bro spotlight. It needs someone who knows where to look.
Precision Neuromuscular Therapy has been teaching high-quality seminars for over 20 years across the country. Founded by Doug Nelson, PNMT uses problem-solving skills and precise treatment options to get powerful results for your clients. PNMT seminars focus on honing your assessment and palpation skills to precisely target the source of your client's pain while understanding the why behind the what. Meet us in a hands-on seminar or online in the PNMT portal, and let us join you on your learning journey. Learn more at pnmt.org. Elevate your bodywork career with Anatomy Train's Structural Integration Certification, ATSI. Discover how to map the pattern and shape the change through through inspiring lectures, hands-on body reading, and practical techniques you can use in your practice right away. Join us for ATSI Maine 2026 to 2027, where Tom Myers will personally kick off this transformative professional training. Learn more at anatomytrains.com/ATSI.